The wedding happened so fast, it almost didn't feel real. I remember the way my mother pulled me aside that evening, her face tight with urgency, her words spilling out faster than I could catch them. You have to say yes, it's a good family. You won't get a proposal like this again. And Jungkook, I barely knew him. I had seen him twice, once at a wedding, once outside a coffee shop. He was handsome, polite, but distant, in a way that felt like a closed door I wasn't allowed to knock on. The engagement lasted all of 5 days. The wedding was a blur of flashing lights, heavy jewelry, fake smiles, and unshed tears that weren't all mine. The night we got married, he was careful, polite, respectful. He didn't touch me beyond what tradition demanded. No kiss, no whispered promises. In fact, there was no warmth or hope in his words. You were sitting at the edge of the bed, staring at your hands. The door creaked open and Jungkook walked in. He had changed into loose black pants and a t-shirt, looking far more comfortable than you. He stopped when he saw you. For a moment he said nothing. Then he cleared his throat and walked to the dresser, setting down his watch and phone. You don't have to worry. I'm not going to force anything. His voice was low and hesitant. You lifted your head slowly. He wasn't even looking at you. He was facing the window now, his posture stiff. We can take things at your pace, he added, rubbing his palms over his jeans as if trying to clean off invisible guilt. You forced a laugh, bitter and thin. Whose pace is this anyway? You whispered. He turned to you then, his eyes tired. There was a sadness in them that made your throat tighten. I know you didn't want this, neither did I, but we are here now. Let's at least be decent to each other. Decent, a lifetime of decency with a man who couldn't even look you in the eyes. You nodded, swallowing the lump in your throat. He hesitated, then said, I'll sleep on the couch. Without waiting for your response, he grabbed a pillow and a blanket, making his way across the room. You watched him settle onto the narrow couch, his long legs awkwardly bent to fit. He pulled the blanket over himself and closed his eyes, as if shutting down everything he didn't want to deal with. And you sat there on the bed, wrapped in a wedding dress you hadn't even chosen yourself, wondering if this was the beginning of your life or the end of it. You woke up to the sound of a zipper. Jungkook was getting ready, buttoning up a crisp white shirt, sliding a watch onto his wrist. He noticed you stirring and hesitated. Good morning, he said. Voice was polite but not like a husband who was excited to greet his wife in the morning. Morning, you replied, sitting up, clutching the blanket around you. He grabbed his phone and wallet. I have to meet my father. There's family thing to sort. He kept his tone neutral. You nodded, unsure what else to say. He lingered by the door for a moment. Then with a stiff nod, he left. The door clicked shut behind him, leaving you alone in the enormous silent room. You exhaled shakily, and for the first time, the finality of it all really hit you. This wasn't a dream you could wake up from. It became a pattern. I'm going to the office. Okay. Do you need anything from the market? No, thank you. Short sentences, no arguments, no laughter, no intimacy. You shared meals sometimes, quiet affairs where the clinking of cutlery was the loudest sound. You watched TV in separate rooms. You slept with a chasm of silence between you. Yet, despite everything, small things crept in. The way he placed your favorite yogurt in the fridge without saying a word, the way he fixed the broken lamp in your room one afternoon, the way he sometimes glanced at you when he thought you weren't looking, a soft, unspoken sadness shadowing his features. You caught those moments like tiny shred of glass, beautiful, painful, impossible to hold on to. The faint scent of smoke pulled you towards the balcony. You pushed in the doorway, heart beating a little too fast. There he was, leaning against the railing, the dying sun painting the sky behind him in strokes of orange and purple. A cigarette dangled between his fingers, the tip glowing dimly with each shallow drag. He looked tired, not just physically, it was deeper, like something inside him had been chipped away, piece by piece. You hesitated, gripping the edge of your dress before taking a tentative step forward. You smoke? You asked in soft, careful, almost apologetic voice. He didn't look at you, he just flicked the ash off the cigarette with a careless tap, staring blankly at the horizon. Only when I can't breathe, he said, his voice low and frayed, like a thread worn too thin. You frowned, stepping closer. What do you mean? A bitter chuckle escaped him, dry, humorless. He tilted his head back, exhaling smoke into the air as if it could carry away everything he didn't want to say. It's nothing, forget it. He muttered under his breath, but you heard it. But you didn't want to forget it. You wanted to understand. You studied him, the heavy set of his shoulders, the rigid line of his jaw, the way his fingers trembled slightly when he brought the cigarette back to his lips. He was a man carrying too much, and yet he wore it all so quietly that if you weren't looking closely, you might think he was fine. You can talk to me. He said gently, stepping so close now that you could feel the heat of his body through the cool evening air. He finally turned his head to look at you, and it shattered you. Because in that single glance, you saw everything: the disappointment, the guilt, the loneliness, the resentment tucked neatly behind his dark eyes. He wasn't just unhappy, he was lost, and somewhere deep down, angry at himself for feeling that way. Can I? He asked, his voice raw and shaking like he was holding together pieces that didn't fit anymore. When even you? He paused, swallowing hard, looking away for a moment before forcing himself to finish. Don't want to be here. The words hit you harder than any scream ever could have. You opened your mouth, but nothing came out because what could you possibly say? You didn't choose this either. You didn't hate him, but you didn't know how to love him. Not when both of you were still bleeding from wounds neither spoke about. The silence stretched between you, taut and painful. Jungkook let out a shaky breath, the cigarette forgotten between his fingers now, burning dangerously close to his skin. It's not your fault. It's just, I thought life would be different. He gave a small broken laugh, eyes fixed on the horizon, as if it held the answers he would never get. Thought I would have time to figure things out, find my own way. His words trailed off, swallowed by the wind. You watched him, your chest tightening painfully. He wasn't blaming you. He wasn't even really blaming anyone. He was mourning the life he thought he would have, the choices he never got to make. Before you could say anything, he turned, stubbing out the cigarette harshly in the tray, the motion almost violent. Without looking back, he walked past you, his shoulder pressing you lightly, a ghost of contact before disappearing into the apartment. You stood there, breathing in the lingering scent of burnt tobacco, sunset, and unspoken grief, and for the first time you realized you weren't the only one trapped in a life you didn't choose. He was too, maybe even more than you. The monsoon rains had just begun, soft drizzles against the windows. The world outside washed in a grey, muted sadness. You were folding laundry on the bed, mindlessly, your hands working on autopilot, when the bathroom door creaked open behind you. Jungkook stepped out, a towel around his neck, drops of water clinging to his skin. His hair was messy, damp, his sweatpants riding low on his hips. There was something disarming about seeing him like this, unguarded, almost boyish. You turn your eyes away instinctively, focusing on the clothes in your lap. Need help? He asked, voice hoarse from the hot water. You shook your head, murmuring, "It's okay." He nodded and reached for a t-shirt from the wardrobe. And that's when you saw it, the ink just under his collarbone, stretching delicately across his skin. A name written in soft cursive, small but permanent. You froze, your heart mid-beat, seemed to stumble, falter. He didn't notice at first. He was too busy pulling the shirt over his head, but for those few seconds, the world narrowed to that single point. Her name, still etched into him, still a part of him. Your fingers clenched the fabric in your lap, wrinkling the neatly folded clothes. Something cold and sharp bloomed in your chest, spreading through your veins. You didn't need to ask, you didn't need to hear the story. You already knew. You sat there silently, your face blank, as Jungkook moved around the room, oblivious to the silent earthquake unraveling inside you. You realized then, in a way more crushing than any fight could ever be, that no matter how kind he was, no matter how much time passed, there were parts of him you would never reach. Because someone else had already lived there, someone he hadn't let go, someone he probably never would. You swallowed the lump rising in your throat and forced yourself to stand, carefully smoothing the fabric between your hands as if nothing had happened. He glanced at you briefly, offering a small smile, one you couldn't return. "I'm heading out for a bit," you said quietly, your voice too even, too rehearsed. He raised an eyebrow. "Want me to come with you?" You shook your head. "No, it's just some errands." You didn't wait for a response. You picked up your purse and left, the door clicking softly shut behind you. From that day, things shifted. You weren't cruel, you didn't pick fights, you didn't accuse him, you simply stopped trying. The small smiles you used to give him across the dinner table disappeared. The hesitant conversations on the balcony faded into longer silences. When he reached for the remote sitting next to you, your fingers pulled away a fraction too soon. You built walls so gently, so politely that it almost looked like nothing had changed, but it had. You stopped asking about his day, stopped waiting for him when he came home late, stopped folding his laundry along with yours. It wasn't anger, it was heartbreak, quiet, invisible heartbreak. You realized you couldn't compete with the memory. You realized you didn't even want to try. You slept on your side of the bed, your body curled away from him. You answered his questions with polite one-liners. You became a stranger living in the same house. And Jungkook, for all his quietness, for all the heaviness he carried, noticed. He didn't say anything, but sometimes when you passed him in the hallway, you caught a look on his face, like he wanted to say something, like he wanted to reach out, but he never did. Maybe he didn't know how, or maybe he thought you didn't want him to anymore. And maybe he was right, because the part of you that could have reached for him, the part that could have tried, was buried under that single inked name you could never erase. The night was unusually quiet, no music, no distant sounds from the street, only the soft hum of the refrigerator and the low ticking of the clock on the wall. The house felt too big, too empty, like even the walls were holding their breath. You were curled up at the far end of the couch, your legs tucked under you, staring blankly at your phone. Your untouched dinner set forgotten on the coffee table. Jungkook walked in, a glass of water in his hand. You could feel his eyes on you, quiet, uncertain, and searching. He stood there for a moment, watching you in silence before he finally spoke. Are you okay? His voice was careful, low, almost hesitant, like he was afraid of the answer. You didn't look up. I'm fine. There was a small pause. You don't look fine, he said, stepping closer. You don't eat, you don't sleep, you don't even look at me anymore. You clenched your fingers tighter around your phone. I'm just tired, you said, forcing your voice to sound casual, but he didn't leave it alone this time. He set the glass down and crouched in front of you, blocking your view, making you look at him. Is it because of me? There was something raw in his voice, something scared. Did I do something wrong? You shook your head, biting the inside of your cheek. He reached out, slow and careful, and gently pulled the phone from your hand, setting it aside. He didn't touch you, just waited, his hands resting loosely on his knees. Please talk to me. I can't fix it if I don't know what's broken. You stared at him, this boy who tried so hard to stay distant at first and now looked so desperate for answers. The words stumbled out before you could stop them. I saw it. You whispered, your throat tight. The tattoo. Jungkook stilled completely. You pressed down the ache in your chest, making it hard to breathe. I realized there's no place for me. Not in your heart, not in your life. Maybe not even in this house. You laughed a little, a bitter, broken sound. I'm not blaming you. You added quickly because you meant it. I know you didn't ask for this, neither did I. But I can't pretend it doesn't hurt. I can't pretend I don't feel like a stranger standing in the ruins of someone else's love story. Jungkook's face crumbled, not in anger, in something worse, pain, guilt. She's gone, he whispered, finally your heart twisted. 2 years ago, a car accident. She was supposed to meet her parents. She never made it. The grief in his eyes made you look away. I was supposed to propose that night. I had the ring. I had everything planned. He gave a small broken laugh that made your throat tighten painfully. I never even got to tell her how much I loved her one last time. Silence stretched between you, heavy and trembling. And then my parents, they didn't care about grief. They cared about the image, about moving on, about fixing what looked broken. He shook his head almost in disbelief. They arranged this marriage without asking me, without asking you, without giving either of us a damn choice. Your hands were trembling now. He looked up at you, his eyes shining. At first I hated it. I hated that I was being forced into something when I hadn't even buried my past properly. His voice cracked, but you didn't deserve to be caught in that. You didn't deserve the coldness, the distance, the pieces of me. You wiped at your eyes furiously. I just wanted to feel like I mattered, even just a little. Jungkook moved closer, hesitating before taking your hand very carefully in his. You do. I was too scared, too broken to see it properly, but you do. You looked at him, searching for the lie, but there was none, just raw, aching truth. I can't promise you a love that's perfect, he said, his thumb brushing lightly over your knuckles. But I can promise you a future that's honest, a future where you are not standing in anyone's shadow. Your chest squeezed painfully. You don't have to forget her. I just need to know there's room for me too. Jungkook's eyes closed like the words physically hurt him and healed him at the same time. There will be, if you give me the chance to build it. You stared at him, this broken boy offering you a broken kind of love, but real. Not perfect, not polished, but true. You nodded slowly, feeling the first crack of hope split through the heaviness inside you. Okay. You whispered back, and for the first time since the day you had said vows neither of you had been ready for, you saw him smile. Not a polite smile, not a forced one, a real one. Small, shaky, hopeful, just like the fragile beginning of something real. It happened quietly, a few weeks after that night, the night when confession spilled and wounds began to slowly stitch. You noticed Jungkook acting different, not distant, not cold, but thoughtful and careful, like he was carrying something inside him, something heavy he hadn't shared yet. You were in your bedroom when you heard the door creak softly. Jungkook stood there, his hair messy, a hesitation clinging to him. You looked up, giving him a small questioning glance. He crossed the room slowly, sat down across from you without saying a word at first. Then he placed something on the table between you, a simple envelope. You frowned. He didn't speak, only nudged it closer with his fingers. Slowly you opened it. Inside was a folded receipt, stamped with the name of a laser clinic. Your heart stuttered. You stared at it, then at him, and silent. Jungkook let out a shaky breath, raking a hand through his hair. I should have done this before, not because you asked. You never even mentioned it, but because it's what needed to be done. You stayed still, afraid even breathing would shatter this fragile moment. He leaned forward, forearms braced on the table, his voice low, steady but hurting. I won't pretend she didn't matter. I loved her once. I thought it would be forever. I thought she will be my wife. And for a long time, even after losing her, I carried that love like some obligation, like moving on would mean betrayal. He paused, eyes searching yours. But it isn't betrayal to let go. He swallowed hard. It's betrayal to stay trapped while someone new is offering you their heart. Your fingers tighten around the paper, your throat thick. Jungkook's voice dropped even softer. You didn't ask me to erase her. You only ever stood quietly, waiting to see if I would choose you completely. He reached for your hand, warm and trembling. And I do. I choose you. Not beside old memories, not in spite of them. I choose you because somewhere between all the wreckage, you made me want a future again. A tear slipped down your cheek before you could catch it. You opened your mouth to speak, but Jungkook only shook his head. You don't have to say anything, just stay. Let me be better. Let me build something that isn't half a lie. You rose slowly from the bed, moved around, and without thinking sank onto his lap, curling into his chest. He held you tightly, no promises of a perfect love, no fairy tales whispered against your skin, just a heartbeat that was steady, real, and fully finally yours. And somehow that was everything.